So Fox News is now being accused of editing some very controversial clips of the Kanye West interview. So during his sit down, of course, with Tucker Carlson. Now, Vice obtained some of these leaked clips from the interview. In one, he goes off on a conspiracy theory about Planned Parenthood and speaks about Jewish people. Take a listen.
Planned Parenthood was made by Margaret Sanger, a known eugenics with the KKK, to control the Jew population. When I say Jew, I mean the 12 lost tribes of Judah, the blood of Christ, who the people known as the race black really are.
All right. Well, in another clip, really quickly, he claims his friend. Can we pause and talk about this first, guys? Let's talk about this for a second,
because regardless of what you think of Tucker Carlson, okay, try to take that aside. If you're doing an interview and someone says an answer like that, what are you thinking in your head? Like, what is your next words out of your mouth?
Interview's over.
Like, I don't know, what are you trying?
Or challenge them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if, I would try to stick with it, and try to get as much as I could, but just thinking from an interview's point of view, a person interviews people. Interviewer?
Right. Yeah, there we go.
maybe I'd end it there.
Yeah.
No, I try to get more, but where do you go from there is the point I'm trying to make.
The interview's over.
For you? Yeah.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, I came from morning radio. People would show up under the influence of things all the time. Yeah. If you can't have a coherent conversation with someone at that point, it's like taking advantage of someone who may be going through some type of a mental illness or maybe under the influence of something. And I know taking advantage sounds like a really strong sentiment, but at the end of the day, if you're a journalist, then aren't you really interviewing people in order to get their true take or their coherent? Don't you really need that, or at least have the integrity for your audience? It just, for it to be so strategically aired, that's where I get really uncomfortable.
You're not alone, Erica. You're not alone. In fact, in another clip, he claims his friend, fashion designer Virgil Abloh, was killed by his employer, Louis Vuitton. He also said actors were placed in his home to manipulate and, quote, sexualize his kids. Also, regarding his kids, he said he'd rather they learn about Hanukkah than Kwanzaa because it would come with some, quote, financial engineering, which seemed to imply a long-held stereotype that Jewish people control the financial system. Al.
Erica, I was listening to what you said, and I was like, you always make me think. I was like, would you end the interview, or do you let them talk? Because there's this weird thing. It almost goes all the way back to the Access Hollywood tape where, Billy Bush got in all that trouble. But if I was him, I would have responded by saying, I'm an interviewer. I want to keep people talking because this is what people care about. Now, if you're having nefarious reasons to let it play, then feel free. But I think in this situation, Fox News realizes that having Kanye looked at as a credible source of information is important to their brand, and to be able to bring him back for interview after interview and put him back out there to say what they want him to say, or say whatever he's going to say. So airing those kind of comments would be bad for their brand because they can't really use him anymore.
Is that unethical, though? Is that unethical?
Yeah, of course. Erica said something interesting, because I would keep going for my sake, right, to get the most out of that interview. Erica, it seemed like you were stopping it for their sake, like because you want to protect them in some reason. I found that interesting.
Well, also, you have to remember that we're talking about hate speech as well.
Thank you.
And I mean, if you really want to show how two different outlets handled Kanye in the past week, you have The Shop Uninterrupted on HBO, which is LeBron James and Maverick Carter. Yeah, they literally pulled the entire interview and aren't going to air it at all. So I think that you do have some type of responsibility, and their ethics are involved. It's not just affecting what Kanye's image and what he's thinking and doing. He's talking about his children. He's talking about Jewish people. It's insightful of violence anytime you put any group out there, especially a marginalized group, and have a situation where, and I know, here's the thing, let me just be clear, when we're talking about Jewish people, when we're talking about the Holocaust, no, I am not a Jewish person. I've only been to like 20 Seder dinners, which is a lot of Seder dinners. My point being is that there is actually a link between Jewish people and other marginalized groups.
Yes.
When we have these conversations, we're talking about how it's, you know, how black people were treated, the oppressed and the oppressors, how Jewish people, how Japanese people were put in internment camps. So this is a marginalized community. We can't pretend like it's anything else. So you can tap dance around any way you want, but the truth is the truth, and history is history. And I think that the shop made the wrong call, and we already know why the other outlet didn't.
Yeah.
And don't forget what they were saying when they were marching in Charlottesville.
I know.
I don't even know if I can repeat that.
I don't want
but
you to
they will
repeat
not,
it.
Yeah.
Yes,
so it was,
exactly.
And I just want to point out, I don't think anyone here is defending Kanye in any way. I think that's why I took it to a different place in saying, what would you do in that situation?
Yes.
I don't want anyone to think like we're defending Kanye, because you can't. We'd all say the same thing up here. Just to be crystal clear.
It's more about how they handle it.
Yes.
Interesting.
Oof. All right, so the controversial Jeffrey Dahmer series is now the second most watched English show on Netflix ever. Dahmer overtook both seasons of Bridgerton with 700 million hours watched. The show has been criticized for re-traumatizing victims and their families. Some were depicted in the series, but never even told the series was being made. Now, Jeff, I think you're the only person on here that's actually seen it, right?
I finished yesterday, right? And I'm almost going to make an excuse here, because I'm always bashing, so to speak, Netflix, because if you go on there, it's just all it is murder and horror and histories from the past, and I don't want like these whatever travesties happen in our time in 10 years be made a movie of. And that's exactly kind of what I'm supporting by watching this. But the reason I watch it is because my wife didn't really know Jeffrey Dahmer, and I grew up in Chicago. He was right in Wisconsin, right? And I remember that story as a kid, not every detail. And we watch it, and I got to tell you, I was intrigued. The actor is fantastic, but the story is so horrific, it's like you're attracted. I guess I'm just a regular person that's attracted to that in some sort of way, but at the same time, I actually had a nightmare from watching one episode.
Right.
One episode ended so horrifically that like I woke up at like 2 in the morning and I was having dreams about like Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm like, wow. And I was affected by that. I can't imagine the families of these people, like not even knowing this was coming out and then reliving it like that. It's got to be very devastating.
Yeah, and I think, Erica, that's the biggest travesties. The fact that, listen, I have not seen it. I don't want to watch it. And for these families, for them to not have been contacted, for them not to benefit, like, they really should have, A, given them the courtesy to let them know what they were working on, maybe had some sort of consulting with them, paid them financially. I don't know if they could have done anything to make it right with them, but they should have done something, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I think it's highly insensitive in the name of entertainment. But at the same time, when we're having this conversation, it's interesting to me that I was just at the nail salon yesterday, and this woman was talking about the Dahmer this Dahmer situation. And she's like, I didn't know that he was a cannibal. And I'm thinking, like, how many people will hear a name or hear a story and not really know, you know, the truth behind it all? And I understand that that's a huge, you know, being a voyeur of this murder porn, which is what it is, also comes with some information, but I think there needs to be a sensitivity to that too.
Yeah, capitalism doesn't have any parameters for sensitivity, unfortunately. And just looking at it, as I'm sure some Netflix data analysts would, is they say, if we contact the families, what if you tell us we can't do it? Like, if they show sensitivity, which would be nice, they can't put this out. And whoever put this out will look at this. This will be a bullet point on the resume. We'll say, look how many viewers my shows that I greenlight brings in. This is always about money. It will always be about money. It's sad, but it's the...
Yeah, but there's a moral compass involved, too. There's a lot of producers out there that do the right thing. I know some of them personally, and yes, they're not at the scale of this Netflix show,
and that's why.
But let me
final thought.
Yeah, the other side to this, just to try to spin it in a positive direction, if you can, because it is horrific. They show how like race is brought into this, right, and why he got away with that in the community. He did, right. It also shows the gay or the homosexual community how he got away with it the way he did, and it shows their point of view throughout this that wasn't told when you hear Jeffrey Dahmer. So it kind of gives their point of view and how he got so far down this path, because he should have been caught on the first time, and this lady called over and over and over and over, and because of the color of her skin, the police didn't care, and that shows you that part of it
That's another
as well.
angle.
Yes.
No, thank you for bringing them up. Okay, or bringing that up. So this is some really sad news. I couldn't believe this when I saw this on our Instagram yesterday, BJ. Angela Lansbury, you guys, has passed away. Yep, her children confirmed she died peacefully in her sleep at her home in Los Angeles on Tuesday. She was 96. Of course, we all loved her. She starred in her first movie at the age of 18, a film called Gaslight, and went on to receive 3 Oscar nominations. But she said was often cast as, quote, hags and older women due to her round, full face, even in her 20s. She also received 5 Tony Awards, including 1 for Mame in the 1960s. She famously starred as mystery writer Jessica Fletcher on Murder, She Wrote, which aired for 12 seasons. And who could forget her as the voice of Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast? And oh, I'm so sad about this one.
I thought not only is it sad, but she will stay with us forever. I realized that Gaslight, that the movie she was in, is the term that we use now. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Why did you never tell anyone?
I don't know.
Why'd you never tell anyone?
You've been sitting on the Gaslight origin story?
I just never thought to connect the dots and say it out loud, but yes, I knew.
Okay. Well, next time share it with the world.
Every time I give like some sort of soliloquy, you fall asleep.
I'll work on that.
Usually talk about bears and genes found in a cave.
True.
That's actually
or
useful.
sharks and how they're not confrontational, things like that, right?
Yeah. So
okay. But I love her as Mrs. Potts. I love her in Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote. Oh my gosh.
Wasn't that just feel-good television?
But it all, yeah, so much so.
Yeah.
Shout out to Big Mama, because we used to watch it together all the time. But yeah, I was kind of shocked about her age, because it is true, she always played older.
Right. You're like, yes, exactly. Good one.
Good point.
Good point. Yeah, good point.